So this is a little video showing you how to add the wide binding to the tank top. So we're going to add the binding piece around the neckline and sew it. So in the tutorial I've shown it to you around the other way. It really doesn't matter whether you do it inside out or round the right way. It's the same process. It's just easier to show you this way. So right sides together, and we're going to align the notches. So center front, and just in front of the shoulder. Beautiful. Center back seam, so that aligns with your open seam. The last one. So next we're going to pin between those points because we want it to be nice and even. So you'll see here that your neckline is actually bigger than your band, your binding, which is what you want. So what you want to do, this is just the way I do it. So I hold at this pin here and this pin here, just between my fingers and my hand, like so. And then I stretch it, and I use these two fingers and my thumbs, and I just stretch it so it's all even. Hold it in the center, grab a pin and pop in a pin. And then depending on the size that I'm making, I will do exactly the same between those pins because you want it all nice and even. So let me show you that again. So you can see here, different sizes. So hold it, stretch it out a little bit. Be careful of it curling. Hold it in the center. Even is the key point that you're looking for. There we go. And now repeat that on the back. All right, so there you have it. So now to sew this, I actually turn it in the right way. Voila. And we will go off and sew that. Okay, let's start sewing. So we're sewing on a sewing machine. We want a basting stitch. So that is the longest stitch that I have. There we go. And I'm going to take this off. That way I have access all the way around. It's just a lot easier. Now place that around the arm. I'm starting at center back. And I just go with the foot. With the foot is fine. So now you can see here that your neckline is a little bit bigger than your band, so you're going to want to stretch it. And when I say stretch, it's more like adding tension. You only want to stretch it a tiny bit because you don't want to actually stretch the band. So if you just stretch it out a little bit. Now, if you're trying to get it even, it's fine to stretch and then relax. And you'll be able to feel with your fingers if there's any bumps, if you've stretched it enough. So if you keep your fingers here and use these fingers for the tension and these ones to feel if there's any bumps under here, because you don't want to unpick, that will work for this binding. So let's take out that pin and let's sew with the foot all the way around. And just remember on your basting stitch. Now, as you get to each pin, the method that I use is I kind of pull the pins as I go, but I stop where the pin or notch is, and that gives me an even band. I'll show you what I mean. I just felt a little bump there. Okay, let me start this one again. Okay, so pull it, a little bit of tension, Now I can actually feel a bump here, and that's what you want to feel. So you can just eliminate that just by spreading it out a little bit and smoothing this out and stretching it a tiny bit. Now I'll reposition once I get round. See that notch there? I'll reposition once I get round to that notch. So just spread it out, have a feel with your fingers. Feels good. And then the next one now. Again, have a feel with your fingers, stretch it out just a little bit. Oh, there we go. Try and keep the tension nice and even. And then your shoulder seam is towards the back. I can feel a bump there. And there we go, our first row of basting. So you're halfway there. Well, a third of the way there. Next, we are going to change this to a different stitch. I use a lightning stitch. You can use a triple stitch if you want to. And we're going to sew 2 centimeters, which is 3/4 of an inch. And that's my 2 centimeter mark just there. I'm going to sew all the way around again using the same method. So feeling with your fingers, making sure there's no bumps. You will get more bumps this time, so be more aware. And you must keep this at 2 centimeters. That is the guide for the width of your binding. So let's spread it all out. So no pins needed this time because you've got the basting, but you will need to use your fingers. Okay, let's go. Now I can feel a bump coming up here. See under there? So you need to smooth that out. Now remember, don't stretch too much, just tension. Now, when you get over the shoulders, you will feel a lot of bumps, so go slow and rearrange as you need to. Okay, and there we have our row of basting, and then our row of either stretch stitch, so the lightning stitch, or a triple stitch. Now, don't be afraid to iron your garments. One of the big tricks with this garment's success is whether you iron or not. If you don't iron, you're going to more likely get a garment that is puckered and wavy around the neckline. So it's pretty good on the front as far as waviness goes, but you can see that it's puckered, and you can see that it's puckered at the back. So we need to get rid of all of that. So my first go around, I do it with the basting stitch still in. Don't be afraid to use plenty of steam. So pop it around the neckline first around the end of the iron, the board. And you're not stretching it, you're just steaming it. Look, see, mostly gone. So then go up, so I'm still over the neckline, so just go up here, up onto the shoulder, and then repeat that on the other side. And look at that, that's just, you see, just from steaming. So let's have a go at the back, because the back was pretty puckered. So again, you're not stretching it, you're not pulling it or anything like that. You just, if you need to add a tiny bit of tension, that's fine, just the tiniest bit. Looking good. Up onto the shoulder. And the other side. All right. Look at that, that's pretty good. So next what we're going to do is take that basting stitch out. So I just clip it at the front and grab the stitch at the back. So there, and just pull, a basting stitch will pull out pretty easily. There we go. Now I pop it on board again and just give that another quick go. And just get rid of any little creases or puckers or anything. And on the back, and just take your time. And I know a lot of people say they don't like to iron, or, you know, proudly say, oh, I didn't iron. You can tell. You know, to me, it's the difference between homemade and handmade. All right, next we're going to turn it. Don't say overkill. Next we're going to turn it to the right side. And we're just going to, it's like you do it on the right side, it's like you, I can't think of the word. It gives that lovely sharp edge around your binding. I pop it over the end. It's not going to stretch. This is the smallest size and it doesn't stretch over the armhole. So pop it over just so you can just do that shoulder, because, you know, that's where everybody's going to see it. Now it is beautiful. Look at that. All right, next we are going to pin it. This next job I like to do on my lap. So we're going to turn it inside out again, and we want it sitting on the front. Now here is center front, just here. We're going to fold the edge of the binding right down to that stitch line. So see there? So the edge, and we're going to fold it down to this lightning stitch line at center front. And pop in a pin. So do that to the key points first. Now you may need to trim a little bit off the shoulder here. And folding it down. And at center back. And then at the last notch here. Okay, so next you want to do it between those points. So just give it a bit of a stretch down. You see? And then continue all the way around the neckline. Now don't be afraid to use lots of pins. Okay, so there we have it pinned all the way around the neckline, and that's on the inside. This is my trusty little cover stitch machine. You can also do this on your sewing machine with a zigzag stitch or a twin needle. Now next we are going to sew around the neckline. I use the edge right here and a guideline on my clear foot right here to keep it nice and even. I start at center back, but with this pin here, I turn this last pin around the other way so my foot doesn't pull it out. Pop it under, line the edges up and cover stitch. And there we go. And it's all caught around the back because you pinned it. There you go. And there you go, you have done your binding. So as you can see, it's all caught in our cover stitch or your twin needle or your zigzag because you pinned it so diligently. So you can see how important that is. And as you can see here, it's all beautifully even, again, because you pinned it so diligently and because you folded it over evenly. And those steps, each step in the process brings you to this success. And as you can see, because we ironed it halfway through to get rid of all those wrinkles, there are barely any here. So I just wanted to show you another little ironing tip. I know a lot of people iron iron flat, which is fine. That is fine. But you also need to iron the shoulder flat here because it's a curve on the shoulder. And if you don't, it does tend to stick up. So iron that side. And we iron that side. Might give that front a little bit of iron. Oops. There we go. Beautiful. Now, when you do the armholes, exactly the same. Do your basting stitch. Don't be tempted to skip it. 99.9% of the time it won't be successful. So do your basting stitch on the armhole, and then your lightning stitch or your triple stitch, the pinning, and then cover stitching. Now, if it crosses over here a little bit on the shoulder, some sizes do, and it can depend on your fabric as well, totally fine. Just go straight over the top. It'll be fine, I promise. So yeah, pop your armholes on and you are almost done. I think then all you need to do is the hem and find something to wear it.